Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abby, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abby, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby,
Dear Abby.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abby podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dear Abby. I am your host. My name is Abby. Welcome back. If you're new, welcome. I hope you enjoy this podcast. And if you're old, welcome. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Today we are talking about a couple of things. One of those being, I wrote a little something because I was feeling very tired, but it wasn't just like sleepy tired. It was like multiple things. Sometimes it is just sleepy tired, but I wanted to talk about when you're just feeling tired and how it can be tempting because we see it or we hear it or we were taught it or something, to when we feel tired to keep pushing, keep digging, keep pushing. But the tired I'm talking about is not the tired where pushing yourself, keep going past a breaking point is going to be helpful. I'm talking about a tired that like stems from your heart and a tired that fills deeper and starts from a deeper place. So if we just try to force it away, that can just cause more and more pain to ourselves and more suffering later on because we're just ignoring how we're feeling. We're ignoring ourselves. We're ignoring our needs. We're ignoring ourselves. It also is hurtful when people just tell you to not be tired or when they try to just be super positive to you and it comes from a really nice kind place. So it's hard to know exactly the perfect thing to say. And at the same time, it's still sometimes hurtful when somebody says to just push past the tired when you know that it's something deeper than just like you need to take a nap. But that's when we go in the details. And then our main topic of today's episode is going to be about social media and an unhealthy type of escapism, but also just the normal epidemic that's been happening for a long time. But there's an angle about it that I was thinking about this week a lot because I watched the movie that just came out that's like, have fun, something, don't die. Have fun, something, don't die. If you don't want to know anything about the movie, then skip like 2 minutes. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's about AI. It's about like the future of AI, and it's like a funny movie, but it is kind of absurdity humor, but it's also kind of based in the reality of what sometimes social media and technology and all that stuff has done to us as humans. But it freaks me out. And it also made me go down a rabbit hole, which I pulled myself out of. But I also got some good insights from it that I had tried to put into words before, but I feel like sometimes certain things just help things click for you and then you understand. So we're talking about social media and how insatiable it is, how it's like never ending, which can be really positive and really good and uplifting and exciting. And sometimes what I'm wary of is if it becomes more important how people appear online than how they act in real life and who they are in real life. And I think that kind of can be apparent sometimes, which I've done an episode on this, but I wanted to do one, but a little bit of a different angle, talking about, I think, both the positives and the negatives, just looking at it raw for what it is, how it can very much damage our mental health and how, especially with OCD and anxiety, how it can really start to feed that anxiety and feed that OCD and those obsessions. So we'll get into that more a little bit later. And then we won't do a Dear Abby this week, but we'll do one next week again. So let's get into the dubs and L's. Okay, dubs from this week. There's a couple. Well, there's two. Well, there's multiple. First one. As you guys know, I've talked about, I like to draw. I like to paint. I like doing that stuff. I like sketching. I'm trying to get better at drawing, sketching, painting, all of this stuff. I'm starting a Dungeons and Dragons campaign with my friends that live here, as me being the game master. I'm very excited. I'm overwhelmed because it's a lot of work, but it's fun work that I like because I get to practice my art. I also get to practice my psychology and human behavior, which I enjoy thinking about and learning about. And I also get to enjoy imagination and storytelling and really dramatic stuff. So it's really just a win on all sides. The only downside is can be pretty expensive to do. And if you're in my group, I don't think anyone listens from my group, but don't listen for the next like 2 minutes. I have been drawing up like my own map. I'm making the whole world, and I drew up a map of the land, like the world that we're in. And I'm already so attached to that world. But I also really love drawing maps. I'm learning. It's really specific, but I like that everything's on an interesting scale to where things are so tiny, but also you draw them at a big scale. They're like big and little. And it's also cool to see the whole map come together as like, okay, if you just have 4 little towns and you don't have a map, you can't really picture where everything is. The world doesn't feel as big or as real. So I wanted to make a map like hand drawn because I wanted it to feel like a real hand drawn map, because it is. And also I just wanted to practice drawing stuff. And so anytime that I get when I'm prepping for D&D, I always draw as much as I can, because it really does help me in the future. It's really weird to me, and I've watched YouTube videos about this too, where people kind of joke around about like, you don't think, like sometimes you just think you're never going to get better at something you're doing, and then you practice and you practice and you practice, and you're not even like thinking about getting better for a while because you're just like, I'm never going to get better, but you just practice. And then one day you surprise yourself with like how good you've gotten. Like not great, like I'm not great, but I can like look at something and actually sketch it, and that is a miracle to me, because I genuinely never thought that I would even get close. To the point where I get compliments if I make stuff now, which never used to happen. It was like, oh, good try, that looks good. Anyway, so that's my art journey. I would love to go to art school. I really want to go, just to learn from somebody that can help me get to point B to point C. I also, and I'll get into this too, because it's about AI. People use AI art a lot for Dungeons and Dragons to build their characters, which is fine. If that's what they want to do, they want to see their character. It's exciting. I get it. As somebody that likes art though, it drives me crazy when people do AI art. I'm so not about it. And I felt validated because the very successful author, Brandon Sanderson, I'm reading one of his books now. It's the first book I've read of his, and I really like it so far. A lot of people in my family love his books, but I've also just been like listening to a lot of stuff that he talks about, like being a writer and his take on AI art. And I'll get into that at the end of the episode. But he's also does not like AI art, and I agree with everything that he says. So people already use AI art for that stuff, but I still like to do hand-drawn interpretations and hand-drawn paintings of the Dungeons and Dragon characters, because I think anything made with love and patience is better than something that's quick and easy and takes 2 seconds, because then there's meaning behind it. For me, at least, how I interpret it. But also I'll get into deeper what Brandon Sanderson said on a video that I saw that I think about like every day. Also, another dub from this week is sounds weird, but me and my husband have been like BFFs. But we've always been BFFs, but it's our 2nd year of marriage, and our first year was good. Like it was honeymoon phase, like all year, whatever. The first 2 days of our 2nd year of marriage, we were fighting like nonstop for 2 days. I don't know what it was. We went to a spa. We had such a good day. And then like after that, it's just been like fighting for 2 days. I kind of feel weird. I always feel anxious saying that, because I don't want people to think that it's like interpreting it some way, but 90-something% of couples have arguments. So we were arguing a lot, and I was feeling upset a lot, as I can. And as much as I've gotten better at expressing my feelings instead of holding them in, so I'm not holding resentment, and then he's confused, like, why are you all of a sudden having a reaction to something? Like, I'm confused why this is happening. I've been doing a lot better, and I learned a lot from the past year of being married with how to handle my OCD and my anxiety without it bleeding on to him very heavily and without it affecting our connection. Sometimes it still seeps in there because it's kind of tricky and it can be hard, and it very much can attach to my relationships. We were arguing a lot. Then I wanted to just bring attention to the fact that we were arguing a lot and say it out loud. So there wasn't this like undertone or something. I just wanted to say it out loud, and then also like speak to it in a very like, let's face it type of a way, which is something I don't like to do a lot, because confrontation like that can be difficult for me, because I feel like I'm Like, I feel like things should happen a certain way, and when they don't, then that's bad. Or if things should happen naturally, or things should have to flow a certain way. And sometimes I can get really stuck on how it should be versus how it is, and maybe what could actually be helpful. Once I talked about it, I started joking around about it. And then it kind of broke the tension. And then we were laughing. The mindset that I shared with him that I want to practice more on my end is like that we are a team. And so when I'm anxious, or when I have like these OCD obsessions pop up or something, that I was like, I need your support when I tell you, and this is how I need your support. And also I'll do a better job at expressing when that's happening and when I don't feel like talking, so you don't think that I'm upset at you or something. But I committed again out loud that I needed to be better at thinking of me and my husband as one team, because sometimes I can fall into me versus him, and he probably can too. I feel like it's very common, especially we're young, or, it's hard to navigate that, to get better at dropping my defenses. It can just be really easy to put up your walls, put up your defenses if you've been hurt, and then they can't hurt you, but then you also aren't connected to them. There's nothing that's keeping you two together. And so sure, you can like cut off that feeling and like cut off because you don't want to get hurt, and be like, well, I don't even care. So when like they say something, it's like, well, I don't even care. And you just like disconnect. It was a really bad habit of mine. It's kind of like avoidant type of thing. I could be very anxious or very avoidant. I was very anxious, and then I became very avoidant as far as like attachment styles go, I guess, because that stuff is interesting to me. But those things can be all over the place. Like, you can be a little bit of anxious, a little bit avoidant. Like, it can come out in multiple different ways. I think sometimes it's just nice to hear a word that makes sense with something like a behavior, something that's internally going on. Anyways, long story short, I feel like I've recommitted. Like, after our first year, it feels like a renewal, and I like recommitted to think of each other as one team. And no matter what we're facing, if we're grumpy, it's us versus the grumpy. It's us versus the overstimulated, instead of me versus him. I'm grumpy and I'm going to make it his problem, or I'm overstimulated, I'm going to make it his problem, or something like that. Not that that's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm not like, I'm going to make it his problem. It just bleeds on. It just happens. Guys, we're good. We're good. I'm being vulnerable. I'm talking about my relationship. I'm talking about things can go sometimes. Hopefully other people can relate. Every couple I've ever seen in my whole life has argued. So come at me, I guess. I just feel proud of myself. To sum it up, I feel proud of myself for continuing to learn how to break down the defenses that I've put up after my divorce. To be like, nobody can hurt me. I'm unhurtable. Then that became, I had a cold heart, and I didn't love that. So I'm proud of myself, and I'm also excited that there's still more to break down, because that just means more chance for connection and love. So, okay, my L from this week is I'm tired. So I'm talking about being tired because I am tired. Another L is lately I've been forgetting where I've come from. What I mean by that is sometimes I can forget how bad my mental health used to be, which is a good thing. Like, that is actually that is a good thing, because I am not there anymore, and I dug myself out of that, and I got support, and other people helped me, and that whole shebang. But it can be helpful for me sometimes to reflect back and remember like what helped me. Like, prayer really helped me. The things that actually really helped me, and therapy, taking that stuff seriously, those things that I did to help my mental health and like my spiritual well-being, I sometimes forget. And so I'm like, well, I don't need those as much anymore, but that's not the case. I will always need those types of supports, and I want those. And they helped me because they made me feel like purposeful and happy and peaceful. So anyways, that can be an L sometimes if I just like forget that I need stuff. I forget that I need stuff and things that have helped me, instead of being like, oh, I'm fine. Okay, so let's go into the details. Okay, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I am fully wrapped up in the most beautiful, fluffy, cuddly blanket ever. This blanket is from Cozy Earth. These pajamas are from Cozy Earth. This is their Sutton pajama set. I also have their bamboo pajama set, and that pajama set feels like the fabric is hugging you back. I don't know how to explain it other than that. Everything that Cozy Earth makes feels so thoughtful, beautifully put together. They're thinking of the user experience at the end, what that's going to be like. But they don't just have pajama sets, they also have blankets. And this is their classic cuddle blanket. Wrapping myself up in this blanket after a long day at work and coming home, taking a shower, putting on these PJs, and then wrapping myself up in this weighted, comforting blanket is so helpful for my anxiety at the end of the day and really does help me transition more into going to bed. It helps my brain recognize, okay, we're in comfy clothes, we're safe, we have something nice and fluffy, it's bedtime. And on top of that, Cozy Earth also stands behind their product and the durability of their product. They have a 100-night sleep trial, so you can try them, and if you don't like them, you can return them, no hassle. And they also have a 10-year warranty on their products, so it's a risk-free purchase. They really trust that you're going to like their product. So share a little extra love this February and wrap yourself or someone you care about in comfort that truly feels special. Head to CozyEarth.com and use my code DearAbbey, DearAbbey, for up to 20% off your purchase. And if you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to let them know that you heard about Cozy Earth right here. Celebrate everyday love with comfort that makes the little moments count. Okay, so this is for the girl or the guy who feels tired. So getting into the details of feeling tired. I wrote this down again so I don't forget it. So excuse me while I read this. It says, I'm going to turn the microphone so it might sound a little bit different. When you're tired, it doesn't help sometimes when people say, don't give up, or, but you're doing so amazing, because there's probably a part of you that doesn't feel like you are. So what do you do with that part? Suppress, slap a positive label on it, and keep running to the finish line? I can't imagine that would help. Not for the really heavy-hearted, and not for the type of tired that stems from the echoes of a breaking heart. What if instead we sat with that tired feeling for a moment? Maybe we go there with it, and it transforms into sadness. Maybe it transforms into grief. Maybe it reveals that you were just really angry or not setting apart enough time to rest. What if we sat with that tired feeling for a moment, not to sulk or to stay there forever, but not to be scared of the normal human emotion and common feeling that we all feel of being tired? Or what if it is that simple? What if we really are just tired and we need to sleep? We need to take a nap. So if we kept suppressing, it would turn bigger and bigger and bigger, and we would think it is a bigger deal. But what if you are working? What if we are tired, but we're at work and we have to press on? Then maybe we can take a second in the bathroom, not to scroll or to escape, but maybe take a second in the closet or in the car to breathe. And not to breathe in a perfect, deep yogi breath or do it the exact right way. Maybe just to experience a little simplicity. And maybe for a moment, that's all that we need to do is take a couple breaths. Or maybe we can't. And maybe we can't even escape for that long to take a couple breaths and have to wait for the end of the day. Great. Maybe we can rest then. And maybe the type of rest you really need is in a pleading prayer to balm a healing heart, or in a simple nap cuddling your loved ones. Rest can come in all shapes and sizes, so when we slow down and listen, maybe we learn what type of tired we really are, so that we could take the type of rest that we really need. And I basically wrote that for myself to remind myself that when I am tired, in a certain kind of tired, not like I'm sleepy, but sometimes there's a heavier tired that you can feel, and you just know that it's a different kind of tired. I sometimes will do the classic thing and slap a positive label on it and be like, well, I'm just being dramatic or something, or, you know, whatever it is. And I don't just let myself be tired and sit there for a second. And also sometimes we can invalidate our own experience of being tired. Like, how could we be tired? Other people are doing A, B, and C, and how can we get to be tired? Sometimes it can feel like there's no fix or there's no end to that feeling of being tired. And it happens a lot, especially if you're struggling with something. And when I say maybe we're struggling with something, I think everybody is struggling with stuff. every person ever is struggling with stuff all the time. I don't believe it's being negative or looking at the negatives to call that out or to realize that. I think if anything, it helps you be more accepting of the full experience of our of our lives. And it can be a way that we can love and accept other people easier because we are not the only ones that are struggling with stuff, and we can all connect on some level because of that. So anyways, those are the little details that I was thinking about with being tired. Let's move on to the main topic of today's episode with the time that we have left. And I'm excited to talk about this. It's a little bit of a different pace from being tired, but it's a little bit similar. So basically, I have a lot of thoughts circling around this, okay? And I made bullet points, but even then, sometimes I can't get my thoughts to all be super cohesive, and it's hard to express what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling exactly about certain topics like this because there's so many different like avenues that I could take with talking about sometimes the more hurtful things that social media can do. So let me just start with one thing that I have been really focusing on for myself. In a world where it feels like almost every single person is online and that's such a big deal, and where people are famous online, people have followers, they have like this kind of power. There's like a power dynamic within that I've seen that in real life with, I'm in California. There's a lot of people that do social media here. It's kind of a hub for that type of a thing. And so that's one level of it, is it already sometimes can create in interpersonal relationships, or when you meet people in real life, it can create this weird power dynamic, which unfortunately can exist within the world of celebrity or social media fame or, whatever it is. But also, it's never going to stop trying to get you to stay on or get you to keep watching, watch the next video, follow that next influencer, follow that next profile. Like it's never ending, which can be exciting. Like I said, it can be very exciting because there's a lot to discover. But also, I think when I was watching that movie, like I said at the beginning, there's a part where there's like this option that's given to people. And it's like, would you rather go into this virtual world where everything's better? Like your brain is like so happy in there. You still kind of get like hard things, but it's like everything's more beautiful. It's a better reality than this reality. Do you want it? Do you want to go there? And obviously their real everything is, they're not experiencing anything but a screen in front of their face. And something that is showing them what they think a perfect life should be. And so you're feeding into this, what life should be, and this perfect image of what life should be. And I think that very much freaked me out. And also it talked about AI too. And that I kind of became stressed about that. But I think it was actually a really good way of showing how scary it can be to want to be in a different virtual reality than living in the one that we are, than living in actual reality that we're in. And what I realized for me is to be wary of two things. One, if I ever start caring about how I appear online more than how I live my real life in my real body to the people in my real life, if I ever start caring about how people perceive me online more than how I am as a person in the real world, then I will delete social media altogether. Like sometimes I find thoughts pop up that are kind of like making me feel like I would care, like I should care more about how I appear online versus how I appear in real life. And that made me sad, because if we're watching things online and we're kind of tricking ourselves into thinking we're experiencing that thing, or even if someone's talking about something online and you see like a 20-second video, now you feel like you are an expert on that topic when you are not an expert on that topic. I think that's also a common thing. And I catch myself doing that too, where if I watched like a 30-second video or something that has words on it, and I read a caption, like now I think I'm an expert on that. That can be a tricky, that could be a slippery slope of thinking that you're an expert on everything when really you're just watching a video, and it's not the same as really getting an education and learning about something, and from all angles about something. And you can argue that social media does give you all angles of everything, but I actually don't think it does, because you'd have to have your algorithm send you every angle of everything. And I don't think that's just that's just not what it does. It usually feeds into what you're already watching so that you keep watching. So those are the main things that I was thinking about, that it got me thinking about. And I had a little bit of an existential OCD moment, panic, like spiral after that movie. But again, I used my tools. I pulled myself out and I was like, okay, there are actionable items that are good to think about. However, it's not like AI is going to take over the world tomorrow. There was that kind of a thing. Which brings me to my next point, which if you listen to other podcasts or watch documentaries or, read books that talk about this, you hear a lot about that, like the dopamine problem of, when you're watching something, and you get that dopamine, you get that high, but you haven't really done anything, that's dangerous. And just the amount of dopamine that we can get from scrolling and video games are like things that are constantly giving us dopamine. We can feel burned out. So then when we do the things that we actually want to do and we're trying to get better at, we don't feel that dopamine, because it can be like we need more and more and more stimulation. So when you're bored, you feel really bored. Going back to what I was talking about when I was talking about AI art, Brandon Sanderson gave like a speech or a talk. It's like a TED Talk thing, but I don't think it was a TED Talk. It was something else. And he's talked about this a bit, but there's one specific talk that I watched, and he was sharing how much he does not like AI art, and that it's not really art. And he makes the argument that the art or the images, whatever produced by AI, is not art, because the art is us. Yes, AI can learn. You can teach AI certain things. So they can technically kind of develop, I guess, like you can, like web development, like you can develop ChatGPT to do exactly what you want it to do. It is teachable. So that's cool. But when you teach it and it's not learning something, there's no frustration. ChatGPT doesn't feel frustrated. It doesn't feel proud when it produces this beautiful AI image that you asked it to produce. It doesn't feel sad when it's painting a sad image. When it messes up a hand, it's not like, oh crap, it doesn't erase it and do it again and erase it and do it again. And Brandon Sanderson also talks about with it producing research papers and writing like little novels and mini books, like different things, and it's getting really good. And he's like, sometimes I can't tell the difference between AI and somebody actually wrote it. And so he continues that it's not about how good the outcome is. That's not what I'm comparing is real art and not real art. It's that when ChatGPT, again, is trying to formulate a sentence, can't find the exact word to plug in, it hasn't been thinking about this for a while. It doesn't throw its pencil across the room or snap its pencil in half because he's frustrated that he can't think of the right word, or that he's tried this a million times and it's still not working, or that he's drawn a hand a million times and it's still so hard for him to draw a hand. AI doesn't feel that. It doesn't feel anything. It just gets input, shoots out output. Input, output, input, output. So without that emotion, without the heart, the soul that is behind the person creating the art, the person who is writing the novel, the person who is researching, that the art was never about the perfect outcome. The art was about you. The art was about your development. The art was about your heart, your soul. The art was about you throwing the pencil, snapping the pencil. The art was about you drawing the hand 500 times, and then finally you're able to draw a hand that looks like a normal hand. And the effort that you put in, the hours that you put in. I think that only because I want to be an artist that it hit me, but also as somebody that kind of craves like this deep, meaningful life versus things being so quick and easy, that felt so unnatural and not good to me. It feels nice. Like, sure, my dopamine likes it and it's easy, like quick. but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't make me feel proud. It doesn't make me smarter. I also think just in terms of using it for normal common sense thinking is kind of damaging. But, don't get me wrong, AI can be really helpful in some aspects of sometimes learning or just finding sources or compiling something together. However, I really don't like to use AI for ideas, and I will stubbornly refuse to do that, actually, because AI is not going to grow from doing that, but I am going to grow if I don't ask Google or ChatGPT or AI or whatever new AI app or whatever can be also not helpful for obviously someone with anxiety or OCD, because it can be very much a reassurance cycle with ChatGPT or AI, or asking, hey, I feel this. What does this mean? Hey, I have this, this, and this. What does this mean? Asking it over and over again. That's not going to help, your mental state. That's not going to help you be able to handle those OCD thoughts without getting that reassurance. And it's so hard because it's so easy and so much at your fingertips. Those are my thoughts on AI. I felt validated after watching that movie. I felt validated after listening to Brandon Sanderson. So I felt very validated because I felt like I was being dramatic that I was so against using AI for a lot of things. I think more as someone who's creative, I don't want to give any credit to ChatGPT. I don't want to give any credit to a computer. And I'm going to hold to that. And if people make fun of me and roll their eyes, then people can make fun of me and roll their eyes. But I do have to use it at work sometimes because there are things that AI does do that is helpful for work. I think the last thing that I wanted to say about social media was people do show a lot of beautiful things. They show really beautiful pictures, and I like looking at beautiful pictures, but sometimes it can kind of distort reality for me a little bit, because if I'm only looking at really aesthetic pictures on everybody that I follow, or like if I'm just looking for that in life, and I know it's different for people, but for me, I have to catch myself being like, not everything has to be so aesthetic, because then it kind of messes with like what things should look like or what people should look like. Like if it starts to mess with how I should see myself in the mirror, what I'm supposed to aesthetically look like, or what other people are supposed to aesthetically look like, or how they're supposed to act, like, I don't know, any of that stuff, I feel like that's when I need to take a second and take a step back and be like, okay, I need to like cleanse my eyes because I shouldn't be seeing, and I shouldn't care that much about things needing to look a certain way in order to please my eyes, if that makes sense. And that is very much like a biblical thing. It is kind of relevant to me, at least in this day and age, and it makes me happier. So yeah, anyways. Okay, that's what I think about AI. Not a huge fan. Don't think we need it as much as other people do, but to each their own, Okay, that's it. We don't have a Dear Abby, so that's going to be the end of today's episode. If you guys want to support the podcast, if you want to support my podcast, you can leave a rating and a review on Apple or Spotify podcasts. If you want to go above and beyond, you can share a clip. You can share my podcast or anything. You can share my podcast with a friend or share on your story or something like that. I also post on YouTube, so if you want to follow me or subscribe to me on YouTube or comment or like there, that would also be awesome. And if you guys ever want to hear me talk about something specific, you can send me a message on Instagram, or you can comment on my YouTube or on my Spotify, or anywhere you could reach me, and I will read it, and I will try to answer your question, or I will try to do a podcast episode talking about that specific thing. Okay, I hope you guys have a wonderful, beautiful weekend, and take yourself out. Be kind to yourself. Love you guys. Bye. 우회전 taking a ride to Jonathan 눈치 보면서 들어가야 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 개설레임 바꾸는 사람들